All right, guys, we're here in the Secret Lab expansion. We're about to talk about the movie Pixels. There's going to be a ton of spoilers. I'm here with Chris Delp, Lauren Featherstone, myself, Corey Hayden. And just warning you, if you haven't seen the Adam Sandler movie Pixels, it will be ruined for you if you watch the next 2 hours of this podcast. And we got to mention our awesome sponsor for this podcast, Mr. Brown's Coffee. We have it at all of our arcades. It's become a total phenomenon with our regulars. And when you come visit us, pick one up, enjoy it, get a little bit of a caffeine boost, and enjoy the podcast. All right, guys, welcome back. We're here in the new expanded lab, beta testing a cool podcast room, and we're talking Pixels. This is part 2. We weren't really sure how many parts this is going to take, and we can always find awesome things to talk about when we're talking movies. So we're about halfway through Pixels, the movie, in terms of plot progression, discussing what we liked, what we didn't like, and we have to mention that we were ripped apart a little bit for not really liking at all Ready Player One, and we were talking expectations in the last one. Ready Player One is a Spielberg movie based on a book that, you know, I think most of us kind of love even. And then there's Pixels, which is an Adam Sandler movie directed by Chris Columbus, that has things that are redeemable, especially the CGI.
Right. All those elements make me not think this is going to be a terrible movie.
Well, yeah, and there was a clear respect and love for the 80s that comes across in Pixels that, unfortunately hasn't come across in a lot of films that are trying to capitalize on this 80s thing. And it's weird because it's still an Adam Sandler movie, but there's stuff that we like to, that they did right. And they did it right in a way that was kind of special, kind of interesting.
Yeah, you've got a 45-minute movie where you cut out the Adam Sandler parts. That's really interesting in those days.
Right, a little short film, an ode to the 80s. That would be pretty good.
Yeah, starring exclusively Peter Dinklage.
Right. So, and that's a great place to kick off. Peter Dinklage plays the Billy Mitchell type character in the movie. He's over the top, amazing, and just absurd. And I mean, not all of his material works, but it is really goofy and kind of fun watching him do it because he does it he's having such a fun time doing it. And we just picked up during the last challenge, they were fighting Pac-Man. And in the middle of it, he's able to capture Pac-Man as one of the ghosts through some sort of weird thing. He went faster than they thought was possible. They don't know how he did it.
They don't know at the time that he went faster. They're just like, oh, how did you get over there? And that's where that ends Yeah,
we get to see the omniscient view. We get to see the omniscient view where he's glitching around the maze of New York City, I guess.
Right, and so
I take that back. It's in London.
No, that one was in New York, wasn't it?
Was it? No, you're right. London is the Centipede.
London was Centipede, and then I think New York was the Pac-Man. And so we have defeated Pac-Man. President Kevin James decides to host a gala event in the middle of a war, and so he invites all of the people who have not saved the world. They've just temporarily paused.
The only hope for saving the world. Right. He wants to get them all drunk.
Right. Well,
I mean, it's a morale booster. I'm not totally shocked by that, right?
This is consistent with President Kevin James's character, though.
Well, who just cares about approval ratings. They're on the upswing. I guess the problem was all of the reporters were making fun of him before, and then he has a press conference after they beat Pac-Man, and he's making fun of the reporters, and all of a sudden everyone in the press corps is like, yeah, suck it, bad reporters, and it's so weird. But he's hosting a gala event. We're in there, we're doing it, and I can't remember exactly what was happening during the gala event, but never mind. Peter Dinklage gets Serena Williams as his date as some promise made by the president, because the president is apparently the pimp of Serena Williams.
That's so cringe. Of the actual Serena Williams, it is.
I know
there are some cringeworthy moments in this movie.
It is uncomfortable. I mean, but she does go, he promised me an island.
Right. Yeah, well, that was
they
great.
wouldn't give Peter, but they would give Serena.
Peter Dinklage had previously asked for an island, and he knew exactly how many islands there were, and they're like, no, absolutely not. And then, Serena Williams apparently gets an island for going out on a date with Peter Dinklage. And, I mean, it's not like she does a bad job or anything in the movie. She's kind of funny. She's kind of there, and, I mean, he's being his ridiculous self, and it's kind of funny. So he gets rejected though. He's mad and something, and he puts on his sunglasses and walks out, I guess. And for whatever reason, and there's other subplots going on. Adam Sandler's trying to woo Michelle Monaghan, who decided to go out on a date with him at the gala, and
he's like, "Your eyes are so beautiful," and she's like, "No one's ever told me that in my entire life."
Well, yeah. I guess that was because she said that the eyes are a little far apart on the hussy who named Cinnamon, who stole her husband, and he's like, "Well, I think you have perfect eyes," and she's like, "Oh wow, we're in love now. We're gonna kiss or something."
Is this Adam Sandler's like fever dream version of Michelle Monaghan as well? Because we have Michelle Monaghan, I believe, is the ex of Tom Brady, famously dumped while she was pregnant. Right. So this is essentially the story there. We have Adam Sandler or his writer like reimagining that with the perfect woman, perfectly vulnerable.
Well, I don't know who Adam Sandler's married to, but probably.
He's probably doing well.
He's probably doing okay.
I'm
gonna say that.
I assume we're gonna find out that it's a model who's not an ultra successful actress, but she's had some roles. That seems like who you'd be married to. So
variety of Happy Madison productions.
But okay, so they're doing that love story subplot. Peter Dinklage just got rejected by Serena Williams. He's leaving, and of course, the Michelle Monaghan character has brought her son to this gala event because he's there the whole time. Because
the whole movie.
Yeah, she can't find anyone to watch her kid, despite having a high-level government job, making decent salary, and working for a government that provides childcare for most of its whatever. Doesn't matter. He's there at this gala event, and if I remember correctly, Adam Sandler probably did something nice to him, and everyone, you can see them bonding, and you're like, wow, you know he's going to be his dad by the end of the movie because that's how it's working. Even though he has a real dad who we don't really know, but whatever. Peter Dinklage leaving the scene, runs into the kid, and Peter Dinklage doesn't have any reason to do this, but just tells the kid that he's been cheating his whole life. They don't even, like, the sunglasses thing, he's just like, I cheated back then, I cheat now, I cheat all the time, I'm just a cheater. And then he leaves. The end scene, and everyone's like, oh man, Peter Dinklage is a cheater. That's what that weird thing was. And then it turns out on his sunglasses had written cheat codes that don't exist in these real games.
Cheat code for Pac-Man that works in a Mini Cooper.
I know. It was so weird just because all I can think of, all the people who watched these movies now think these cheat codes exist and are never going to do the research to know that there's no such thing as like a speed up glitch cheat code in Pac-Man.
That's kind of a good thing, though. I don't know. I don't want my movies giving me cheat codes.
Well, it's true. It's better that it's not real than the alternative. But it seemed... but he's a cheater. We knew something was shady about him. He's a cheater. And it's really funny because this character is based clearly a little bit on Billy Mitchell. And this is before the huge cheating scandal of Billy Mitchell. Before it's even a parody. Yes.
Well, Billy Mitchell did try to sue.
Right. Well, and in Billy Mitchell's defense, he's not nearly as charismatic as Peter Dinklage.
Right. That's the thing. This is a bizarre, really redeemable version of Billy Mitchell, played by Peter Dinklage. He admits that he's a cheater, even if it's just to the kid.
Right.
He's self-aware enough to understand that he is a cheater.
But he's definitely cringeworthy human being still.
Absolutely. Yes, he is. Yeah, he is a lot of elements of Billy Mitchell, and then there's a redeemable element to him where, and we see at the towards the end, he's committed to I have to prove myself, that I can do this without cheating. Which is what Billy Mitchell needs to do in reality in 2018 if he wants to have any portion of his reputation back other than just being, jackass Billy Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yep.
It predicts the future of Billy Mitchell perfectly.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It is both. It's a credit to Peter Dinklage to really capture that persona, which is just arrogant game player who will do whatever it takes to win, including cheat. And it's that persona is so strong that even life imitated art, art imitated life. It doesn't matter. That type of person is always going to cheat. And of course, Billy Mitchell was a dirty, terrible, awful cheater who just completely ruined everyone's faith in record books forever by being a dirty, terrible, awful cheater.
But not one iota of self-awareness in Billy Mitchell, whereas Peter Dinklage's version is redeemable because he does have some self-awareness. He is willing to put himself out there and potentially get defeated at the end of this.
Right.
I have to prove this myself. That is something that Billy Mitchell is never, into doing. I think a public defeat of Billy Mitchell would actually help humanize him right now. Whereas currently he just, I
don't think he's ever wanted to be humanized, though.
Right.
He's always wanted to be.
There is no redemption
on a different level.
Yeah.
So just as a quick sidebar, Adam Sandler is married to Jackie Sandler, former model and Happy Madison production, appearing in every single movie that they've ever done.
Yep.
Which is great because, he does, that's the Adam Sandler thing, though. All of his friends, his family, they all get to just come do what he's doing. And so that's, it's not surprising, but that is exactly, it's not surprising, I guess is where we'll leave it. The gala event, something happens. The aliens are like, y'all are cheater. Oh, wait, actually, though, quick backstep.
Yeah.
As for winning the Pac-Man thing, they receive a little Q*bert trophy.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I was going to make you go back if you skipped over
that might actually be the best part. That or Peter Dinklage's performance. Like, the Q*bert is really well
Q*bert
realized.
is my favorite part of the movie. I don't think Q*bert had to talk, because we all know, like, Q*bert doesn't actually have a voice. But I don't mind it.
Yeah, they did, like, the digitized Q*bert thing, and it was...
So cute.
How did Ready Player One not get more licensing, guys? They have Q*bert being like
also Ralph has Q*bert as well,
doing all sorts of goofy stuff. And Q*bert is a classic, and he's this just character in this movie now, who's interacting with stuff. Adam Sandler's feeding Q*bert, and it's so crazy to me
that gags are actually funny.
That anyone was worried.
Feeding him cheese puffs.
I know.
I was like, this is believable. Q*bert would eat cheese puffs.
Right. Well, it was just, it was goofy. It was silly, but I think it's clear that any nonsense that was said after Ready Player One was released, that they couldn't get the licenses to the stuff that everyone wanted to see in the movie, is nonsense. If Adam Sandler can get it, Spielberg can get it.
You would think.
I would not be surprised that no one from Ready Player One ever saw Pixels, because we hadn't seen Pixels before this week. But if they'd had, I would think like you could see, this character, even people who don't know this character can be cute. Well, and
I think we have to address perhaps Pixels slightly underperformed. Still made $250 million at the box office against an $88 million budget. Most people would consider that a mild success in Hollywood, given different expenses and whatnot. And maybe if we're trying to be nice to the people who made Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg, maybe they just didn't want to be like Pixels. Maybe they were like, we need to avoid that, so that, and I'm going to double check.
We didn't see it beforehand. Maybe this is a response to Pixel, like that our movie has been made.
Right. Because Pixels nailed the 80s elements. During this gala, while Q*bert is now there as the trophy and everything, they get a message from Hall & Oates telling them, you guys are cheaters. And it turns out that the aliens are really upset because Earth has cheated to win the Q*bert thing, and now the aliens are going to launch a massive attack, and because they're just going to consider it a loss, a forfeit for the United States, the world. Sorry. Then they're going to launch their attack on New York City and send all the aliens down. And that's kind of where we go. Once I was checking really quick, and I think I got it. Yeah, Ready Player One did make more money, but it was probably mild. It was probably about the same profitability.
Do you have the number?
Yeah. Well, so Ready Player One hit $580 million global, and Pixels only against a $280 million budget though. Yeah. Pixels against an $88 million budget did about $260 million.
Which is why Adam Sandler has a career that continues to this day.
Right. Every single Adam Sandler movie is made for about the same cost and grosses about the same. Here, though, this is a different kind of. There's a lot more action here than most of the.
A lot of special effects too. This is probably a very expensive Adam Sandler movie
nowadays. I'd imagine. Maybe who knows? Maybe Adam Sandler took a pay cut for this. I don't know. He didn't, but who knows? So we're left then with the alien invasion, which we get a huge popcorny CG amazing invasion. Every single, not every, but the vast majority of the games you'd want to see invading the Earth pop up there. You've got everything from Paperboy. You've got the Robotron bad guys doing their walk and everything. It's so amazing. It's well captured. You've got Tetris, and this was featured in the original Pixels short film, and it was actually really cool. Of course, you're skipping over the fact that in this actual invasion, you'd have millions and millions of people dying. No one dies in this movie.
Frogs just
no one populates this world that we're a part
of.
Well,
yeah, it's basically empty somehow. And they're just running. But yeah, so that you make the Tetris lines, and the part of the building collapses on itself, just like you just cleared lines in Tetris. It's really, hit me. Which game were you really happy to see, Chris?
Kubert stole the show for me.
Oh yeah, but during the invasion, let's talk.
During the invasion, Robotron.
The big Robotron bad guys.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the Argonoid reappeared. Lauren, what did you see? We didn't have a Tapper appearance.
No, I know. Which, is my fantasy, is just to save the world by throwing beers.
You need to root for a sequel, Lauren.
Right.
I'll be there. But I don't know. I thought Paperboy was interesting just because I never, Pac-Man, Frogger, I think of these as, the popular, I could say it to my mom who doesn't know games, and they'd be like, oh, I know what Pac-Man is. So I don't know how popular Paperboy was in its time, but for me, I was like, oh, that one's at least, not as big of a name as expected.
Well, Paperboy had, a slow popularity, because it came out on arcades, and then it had the NES release. And,
yeah, that's what I remember was the NES release more than the arcade.
It was that was it was a rolling fandom for Paperboy.
Yeah.
So I just kind of liked that it wasn't one of the obvious choices.
And yeah, obviously Space Invaders was there. We had Kubert. You have the Tetris. I'm going through the list right now.
Tetris was great. Kubert, was definitely my favorite part of the entire movie.
Right. You had Frogger, you had the frog jumping around. And I mean, it was, it's really amazing because they have major game licenses from Williams, which did Robotron and Defender.
Taito.
You had Taito. You had, Nintendo, you name it, it's there because, as we'll find out, there is...
and again, willing to make these characters, these beloved IPs, villains.
Right.
They're destroying the world.
Yeah, there's a little Smurf thing where she kills the Smurf, and she's like, don't tell anyone that I killed a Smurf.
They're destroying cities that could populate with up to millions of people, but they don't actually exist in this movie.
Well, in Nintendo lets Donkey Kong, which is... Donkey Kong was both the end of the World Championships and is the last kind of super boss here. So... The aliens are invading. They all team up again. They're all... I guess the president, for whatever reason, has lost some power or something. I can't remember. They've deposed the video... What did they call them? The
what? They're trying to hide the president. That's what's lost his power.
And the military's taken over.
Right.
And the arcaders have been sidelined. And so the arcaders go rogue. Adam Sandler... Josh Gad, Michelle Monaghan, and then the president, who's also had his nice arcaders custom outfit made for him, show up. We get Peter Dinklage, who had left because disgraced cheater comes back for a redemption shot. And they're all doing it's kind of fun watching them just shoot all this stuff. And just blow up these beloved arcade characters in really nice CG graphics. You get some decent jokes from Peter Dinklage and a lot of weird corny stuff with everyone else during it. We get the Smurf getting shot in the face, just getting and then pixeled. And
I don't remember the Smurf arcade game.
So, and what I'm leading up to is Josh Gad finally meets the femme fatale from his boyhood dream game that he's worshipped his entire life. She shows up, and at first she's pixelated, and it was really funny because my wife, when she shows up, my wife goes, she was excited to see
a female character. Bad news.
Meet her, and then they changed the CGI and make her like a real person for whatever reason. No one else. That doesn't happen to any other character.
Well, every other character exists in an '80s arcade game,
and so. That Josh Gad and her get into a short fight, and he lays down his arms, and for whatever reason, she's in love with him.
Right. See, I really would have liked I liked when she was a villain because obviously it makes sense.
Josh Gad does his Josh Gad bit where he's just being goofy and in love with her, and yes, it is pretty creepy.
Oh my god! She does not say a word.
She's a video game character, and his obsession with her has always been unhealthy. And this, I believe that. They make all sorts of weird references, especially as we get toward the end about her, and they're relatively self-aware how creepy it is.
Right? She's a fantasy character, so she's like based on an over-sexualized video game character, but she's triple over-sexualized because she didn't actually exist. This isn't us lusting after Princess Zelda or something like that.
Well, and I see though my biggest issue with it is that she immediately joins sides with him and then starts killing her own kind for no reason.
Well, because she's not even she's just a weapon, right?
Right.
Because there are the trophies, which is Kubert, and then spoiler later her in a turn of events. But and we're made to believe those Kuberts are actual aliens in video game form. But otherwise, all of the games we're seeing are just weapons, right? They're not actual aliens.
Unclear.
Well, okay, yeah. There's we have a certain danger here of analyzing these specific. Like, we ripped Ready Player One apart for being internally inconsistent. Here, everything's internally inconsistent. They haven't built up their narrative for the aliens at all. It's just aliens that show. They saw. I mean, I guess the aliens are. They saw a time capsule that had 80 stuff, and then the aliens are.
They thought it was a threat.
Right. They're doing, and so they came to like do a weird challenge thing where Earth can either survive or not. That's totally couched and silly and ridiculous. But the plot doesn't make a lot of sense.
Every turn is more disturbing than the next. She doesn't speak. She does join his side. I think. What's the character that makes note of, hey, she's on your team now, and he's like, no, we're engaged.
Oh, right. I can't even remember. Was it Peter Dinklage?
Wow,
I don't know.
I think it was supposed to be along the lines of like she was this evil like bad guy weapon, and then he shows her love, and like that's why she needed to like soften her.
Right.
Yeah.
Alien or weapon heart was love, so
I mean, guys, it's a creepy joke, but it is an attempt at a joke.
It is that,
and I mean. It's not like they've built Josh Gad up to be a normal functioning person either. So him falling in love with the video game character and the video game character loving him back isn't like the end of the world, because they're both weird, creepy things that are happening in the movie. And
very true.
There's some decent, I thought there were some decent jokes in there. I thought it was probably Josh Gad's best stuff because of the movie's mildly self-aware at how creepy this is, how weird it is.
There is note to that,
but they just go along with it.
With the 15th trip to that joke.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, Adam Sandler they're following a formula, and a joke formula, a script formula, and it's not surprising. But we've got Adam Sandler, we've got Michelle Monaghan. They're going to challenge the aliens in the middle. I can't remember exactly how they figured out they had to go to the alien ship. There was something.
Well, and remember they took the son.
Oh, right.
So that was the big.
They kidnapped her son. And two other people had randomly been kidnapped, and now her son has been kidnapped. That's right.
Each had been through. The first one was from the very beginning.
The next one was in India.
Oh, the second was India, and then
the son was after the cheating was found out. They took the son, so they've kidnapped her son. They've got to go rescue the son. They go to the mothership, which I think is like a space invader. I can't remember. Space invader ship, I think.
I thought it was like a boss ship. Maybe
I don't know.
I don't remember.
And so they go into it, and all of a sudden they're faced with that old nemesis Donkey Kong.
Which ties back to the Billy Mitchell line.
Which of course Billy Mitchell had cheated, Peter Dinklage had cheated on Donkey Kong at the beginning, and it's implied that he'd used some sort of glasses cheat code to get.
He did not use MAME.
Right, and so they appear, which I thought that the Donkey Kong fight scene. I mean, I wish there were certain aspects of it changed, but I thought it was kind of interesting. It was a weird take on it, and it was neat seeing Donkey Kong and all of the parts of Donkey. I mean, this is actually what I found the most unbelievable about this Donkey Kong fight scene, which of course they're in a pixelated digital.
Show Monaghan's backflips.
No, Kevin James jumping over barrels without no. This is physically exhausting stuff they're doing.
Right.
I mean, they are sprinting, jumping over barrels, actually jumping.
18-inch vertical.
Then they're speed climbing ladders and stuff, and somehow Kevin.
Maybe when they're put in this alternate reality, they are given character abilities as opposed to real life abilities.
Because I was watching that, I was like, guys, jumping, I'd be so exhausted on the first level. Like they're jumping over barrels. This would be so hard, and yet out of shape Adam Sandler and Kevin James, and then there's Michelle Monaghan doing backflips, cartwheels, super tricks and stuff, and then ultimately there's a back and forth. The sun falls down, and they have to. Oh, they go and they save Cubert. Okay, so Cubert, the alien, gets trapped at the bottom, and they go, but they risk their entire world to go save Cubert because he's been so cute the whole movie.
I win.
So they go back and they save Cubert and save the day, defeat the aliens. Have just probably the worst postscript scenes to a movie ever. I don't know why they went this way, but they did. They're in front of the White House, celebrating. Cubert transforms into Josh Gad's digital lover, who he then procreates with and makes baby Cuberts.
Very strange.
So let's not forget that that's part of the movie.
He definitely confirms that he has no love for the individual that is at least in some way supposed to be represented by this thing because it just transfers over to another being who then assumes her image, which is all that he cares about.
And it's just all, no voice. It's so disgusting. The weird joke wrap-ups because there's a Martha Stewart.
Okay, so we clean up Josh Gad by giving him his digital lover, and they procreate. They clean up Peter Dinklage by finally giving him his threesome with Serena Williams and Martha Stewart. Played by Serena Williams and Martha Stewart. How did they get those two to come? And I mean, Peter Dinklage is definitely the best part of this movie, but still, that is such a terrible joke. So he gets his threesome, and I mean, I don't know.
Martha Stewart is, they're in the window of the building, and she's literally holding a sandwich.
she's holding the panini he had referenced earlier. Because when
they play themselves, they're clearly in on the joke. I don't know how they pulled that off.
I mean, so Josh Gad, his character wraps up by having weird relationships with what used to be Qbert and becomes his digital femme fatale. Peter Dinklage, they wrap up by giving him this weird threesome with women that he has won this threesome by winning the world. Really kind of creepy.
Well, and Serena, at least I don't know. They put it in Serena's court by she texts him and she's like, so now that
it's
you're
true.
A hero.
It's true. It's I mean, yeah, they're not completely implying that it was the prize, but
obviously, all of this is just because it's a joke.
Right.
The movie doesn't show any.
I know, you're right.
Serena's not actually touching Peter at all, physically in the movie.
There is also a line where, I think they say something like, "Are we going to talk about what just happened to Qbert?" Right. And they're like, "No." So they are in some way self-aware.
Well, because you're not really supposed to like Josh Gad. You're not supposed to think he's a noble guy who's going to fall in love with some normal nerd person. That might have been even more patronizing if he fell in love with anyone else. But Qbert turned into his
well, same with Peter.
Right. And that's Peter. I mean, Peter Dinklage never establishes himself as someone who's going to turn down a threesome with Martha Stewart and Serena Williams. And that is his character. And they take it to the natural conclusion. And in some ways, they make, the jokes about it. And it's a wrap-up scene. It's supposed to be funny. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that thought it was hilarious. And I'm not going to lie that some of Peter Dinklage's delivery as Billy Mitchell, that made me laugh a couple times. Just his ridiculous deep voice American act. It's so good.
I giggled when Martha Stewart brought out a sandwich.
Yeah. Right. It's one of those things where it's unfortunate, but it's true to the character at the same time, because that's who he's supposed to be, this gross human being. So.
And so we wrap up. You're never going to believe this. This is going to blow your minds. Adam Sandler gets the girl.
Oh my God.
Can you believe this? No. And so, they wrap it up by he's now the dad of the kid, clearly. And now he's going to raise this child that's not his own. And he's in love with her, and she's in love with him, and he has saved the world, and and it's even implied he's gonna make something of his life now. They just have to wrap him up as the winner of the movie, and
there is an honesty of that actually being his life, though. So in some ways, this never-ending Adam Sandler movie really is Adam Sandler's life. He really does live this life over and over again, making movies. They make money. He tells dad jokes. And then he cashes more checks.
In real life, he is married to a model. This is his life. This is Adam Sandler. So
this is his life crossed with our lives, running an arcade.
And the hero treatment is real. Even with Peter, I'm not saying that about Serena, because she's better than that. But there are people who are like, oh, you're a hero. And, similar with Adam, oh, you're famous now. And
it's true. It's true. I mean, someone who saved the world is probably going to have more opportunities than just a PC repairman or a home video installer. It's not that it doesn't follow logically. It's just too obvious.
Unfortunate.
And then Kevin James. They never gave Jane Krakowski or anything, but they've fixed their relationship problems, and he's the most loved president of the world because he has saved the world. And there's ignoring whatever his actual politics would have ever been and all of his lame jokes. He's now seen as a cool guy who is not a bumbling idiot. The end. Hooray.
Well, somehow he saves the world without any casualties.
Right.
So, kudos.
Wait, and I guess we missed the joke. There's a claw game joke that I'm forgetting, because he's good at claw games at the beginning, and then I guess there's because he saves them with a crane. He somehow has transformed his claw game knowledge into operating a very, very big, huge crane to save his friends. The end. That's Pixels.
This is not far away from our lives, by the way. Crane expert president of Free Play Arcade, Corey Hyden.
I somehow feel insulted all of a sudden.
World record Tapper world record holder.
Saves world by throwing beers.
Overly intelligent person, Lauren Featherstone.
It's
like this is not too far from home. Except we're not all Adam Sandler.
We don't get the
it's
famous models of the world.
Right. Well, yeah, it's I mean, the cast was what the cast was. The movie was what the movie was, but as we've said the whole time, they definitely love the 80s. Whoever was directing that part of this movie.
In some way, these are caricatures of us. And I don't feel insulted by their treatment of what is on screen. I do love Galaga. I do love Arkanoid. I do love these things. And it's paying homage to them.
Right.
Whereas another movie, that one, is going out of its way to not pay homage to those things, but still try and caricaturize some version of what we have sitting around this table.
Right. Yeah. And geez, I feel as though in between these movies, there's a good movie out there that could have been made, a really good ode to the 80s that we're still waiting on. And I haven't seen every movie in the world, and maybe there is something out there, but it feels like, as you know, like at Free Play Arcade, we do everything we can, right, to make this experience like an ode to the 80s as much as possible, even if it didn't exist in the 80s, and we're kind of going beyond it. And it's like we're trying to be awesome. I feel like both in Pixels, which got the 80s stuff pretty right, just got the
Plus
movie,
Adam Sandler.
Yeah, the movie part just kind of weird. The scripting, the dialogue, it was all weird. And then you've got Ready Player One, which was high budget, had every possible chance to succeed and just didn't. And then didn't care about the 80s at all. Like, just, I don't know. There's something good out there that hasn't been done, and hopefully it gets done at some point.
But I feel like that last Donkey Kong scene kind of wraps up, like, it's a good summary of the movie. You know, it doesn't follow logical gameplay. Obviously, we're not gonna like throw the hammer at actual Donkey Kong to like win the level or anything, but they just loved it and made it look pretty and had a fun time with it.
Well, and that's there have been a lot of things out of the production crew of Ready Player One that just said it's impossible to translate video games to like a digital world. And then Pixels did it perfectly before they even came out. Mm-hmm. I mean, that technology exists. There could have been any interpretation, and instead we don't get arcade games at all in Ready Player One, and all the licensing excuses are clearly nonsense. And I kind of wish I had watched Pixels before, so I had known how nonsensical that is. I mean,
you didn't have to, though.
Right.
It's Ready Player One doesn't like arcade games.
Right. Yeah. It uses them as set dressing a couple times, and that's the entirety of the arcade. I mean, and a throw off line here or there, just terrible.
Ready Player One does like, 70s and 80s Spielberg movies,
right?
And Spielberg produced movies. It does like them.
Well, and yeah, I don't know how Ready Player One got so far away from its love of the 80s, and that's the most probably of many disappointments with that movie. The biggest. It was always going to be kind of a cheesy coming of the age movie, which I love coming of the age movies because I grew up with them. It was always going to be kind of just not able to capture the book exactly because the book is so dense in its references. But just throw it all away.
Well, it's not just like a coming of age. It's not a coming of age in like the 80s sense. It's more in the current generic fantasy.
Right.
I don't know. Could have been Aragorn or like any book remake.
But on a relatively low budget movie in Pixels, because if you assume this cast and crew got paid,
to Ready Player One,
got paid. This CGI wasn't that expensive, and it looked pretty good. Yeah. It captured the games pretty well. We could have had an arcade game come to life, and because in the book Ready Player One, we have different interpretations of arcade games coming to life. Could have easily been featured in Ready Player One. They had plenty of money, they had plenty of skill, plenty of ability to do it, and at the end of the day, it has to just be they didn't want to.
Yeah.
They didn't care. They didn't want...
That's my take on it.
They didn't want it to be an arcade movie.
They did not like it.
And, I mean, Pixels is a hard arcade movie. You cannot ever take that away from it. It is a movie about arcade game players, about the actual arcade games, and it features obscure arcade games. It features games that a lot of people wouldn't know. It features all the big ones, too. Licenses from that's what's so frustrating. Williams, Midway... all of the Nintendo, all of the major 80s arcade game manufacturers, and now Williams and Midway are the same license, but whatever. They were able to get it. They were able to use them as bad guys, use them how they want, make fun of them in the movie, use Q*bert as a prop and just like a cute dog type character. And no, there was no issue. There's no problem. It's bizarre.
But Pixels is meant, the target audience is like 50-year-old dads.
Right.
And Ready Player One was for 16-year-olds. Again, I think
guess
it totally
yeah.
was for that, like, oh, wow, I want to be like them. She's so pretty. it was a teenager movie.
Yeah, well, and I guess that is true, and it's hard not to just start going down a path that we're not going to go down, which is just trash Ready Player One more and more and more.
Go up in
been there, done that.
In our library.
So
Find
let's
hours
talk.
Of that.
This is the biggest question that I've had because I don't know what my answer is. Would either one of y'all recommend Pixels to someone to watch it?
As someone who is who has a great affinity for Galaga back there, if someone is really in love with the 80s arcades, and I would put a heavy like note on there that like the way some of these characters being treated is going to really, really disturb you. But other than that, like the homages to the 80s, yes, I would.
Yeah, I would also say yes. I mean, part of that is that we're not paying for a movie ticket to go to the theater to see this. You know, go rent it at home, have some beers at home, like whatever. You know,
fast
just like
forward through some scenes.
Well, soon to be released the Delp cut of Pixels, where he takes out all of Adam Sandler's scene, and it's just Peter Dinklage and the arcade games.
And honestly, like we can't deny that I feel like a lot of people who go to free play probably do like Adam Sandler humor.
Well, yeah,
and
I mean
that's fine. Like there is a type. I mean, comedy, as we've talked about comedy in general, like everyone has a type. And so I'm sure some people who go to free play love Adam Sandler.
On the whole, I enjoyed the movie.
Well, yeah. I laughed legitimately at times during this movie. I cringed a lot too. Yeah. Like there were times where I was like, "Oh man, why?" And then there were times where
this movie embarrassed me heavily, multiple times,
right.
And it also made me laugh on occasion, and it made me smile a lot as I saw my beloved childhood things destroy the earth.
Well, yeah,
I squealed at Q*bert.
You did, yeah.
Well, and when Arkanoid destroyed the Taj Mahal, and like they got the gameplay of Arkanoid so accurately, it blew my mind. Like I was so just like, oh my gosh, they did it! Like they actually cared enough to go figure out how Arkanoid's gameplay worked, and then replicated it in 3D CGI, beautiful pixels, destroying a beloved like landmark. It was, I mean, that was a cool scene. That was interesting. And it's funny because just before that scene and just after that scene are jokes that I was totally cringed at. But for that time, I was like, this is enjoyable. Yeah. I like to. It's really nice seeing, just seeing such a nice display of these old games brought back to a modern situation. It was really cool.
Well, granted, they must have not learned anything, but the soldiers had that whole scene where they're each playing on an arcade cabinet. There's like these rows of arcade cabinets.
Actual arcade games had actual screen time in this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Which again, Ready Player One, which the book uses arcades throughout as plot devices, just completely abandoned them. And I mean, both movies were mild successes, maybe moderate disappointments, depending on who you are, in terms of profitability. But I see nothing in Pixels that should have been like a red flag about featuring arcades. I mean, it performed probably about as well as it was ever going to. And it had nothing to do with the arcades. Like I'm trying to put myself in the producers of Ready Player One, why they did what they did, and I don't know.
The only answer I could come up with is if you had seen it, wouldn't want to make the same movie twice, I guess.
I don't know, teen fantasy.
But,
I still think they're just like...
I mean, ultimately, you're right, Lauren. Well, they literally did not care about the 80s.
They're like, people with iPhone, or teenagers with iPhones don't care about arcades.
Right. Well, and you know, that's...
Which is only crazy because like that's the conceit of the book. The book is about the 80s, right? The Ready Player One comes from an 80s video game, and just to have that hate the 80s, it's so weird.
And you can kind of see Adam Sandler humor probably appeals to a lot of people who do love these games and remember these games, but it just kind of ignores this generation that is like, I mean, Chris and I are the tweeners of the 80s. We were alive in the 80s, but we were younger. And then we got our arcades experiences were mostly as the early 90s came into it.
Correct.
And then there's Lauren, who had no real arcades.
At all. First arcade free play.
So yeah,
First arcade free play.
So yet we see every day people in Free Play Arcade that are from every generation that just love these older arcade games. And it's probably, Pixels was probably just trying to connect two things: Adam Sandler humor and old video games. They know that there's going to be a core demo there that's going to eat it up, so it's a safe movie to make. But with Ready Player One, they were clearly making a movie for a generation that's not at this table, and without concern, without any. It's just such an affront to the book that I'll never get over it. I really won't. I was so looking forward to it, and then I was so disappointed by it. I don't know. All right, we're gonna spend a little bit of time now. This is just a little bit of filler, but I wanted to do this because we're talking video games in movies, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go through. I've got a list. It's not the definitive list, but it's pretty close, of movies that have had arcade games in them. And I want to go through each movie.
You want to try and guess them
and see if y'all remember, if y'all even seen the movie. And
let's preface that I probably have not seen 80% of these movies.
Well, there's a lot on here I haven't seen. I was gonna just kind of let's mention it. Let's talk about if we remember what games are on there. If it's just an arcade scene, because there's some big ones. There's some not so big ones. And what's not on here is that I want to mention really quick is Soylent Green famously features a computer space, which is the first coin-op arcade game. It's a futuristic movie that also features a futuristic looking arcade game. Really cool. But so here's one I had never heard of. It's a movie from 1975 called Rancho Deluxe.
No.
Never heard of it.
This was, potentially one of the first. It has Pong in a bar, which is kind of interesting because most people don't realize or remember arcade games got their start in bars. So if you see them at these older times, it's not a bunch of kids running around. It's grown-ups drinking beer at similar...
And in the 70s. We don't really think about arcades
That's
in the
true.
70s.
It's true. All right. So then this was pretty famous. Jaws had a video game in it.
We were just talking about this.
It's not actually a video game, I guess. It's an EM arcade game called Killer Shark that actually works without a video screen. It's using black lights and infrared readers to shoot stuff. Pretty cool. I've seen this movie a few times, and I don't remember any arcade scenes. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Have I just been too high or drunk every time I've seen it, or...
I haven't seen it.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Sorry. I'm familiar with the Beatles movie.
Dawn of the Dead must have just had a mall arcade.
Yeah, that takes place entirely in a mall.
Right.
If you've played Dead Rising, that's basically a video game version of Dawn of the Dead.
Well, and Dawn of the Dead it's kind of interesting.
That's a good movie to go watch. Dawn of the Dead belongs to its time as well. You're going through a mall. Malls basically don't exist anymore. There's a gun store in the mall. I hadn't seen that in a long, long time.
Well, yeah, and I remember watching Dawn of the Dead as a kid, just thinking how cool it'd be to be trapped in a mall. Obviously, not in that exact situation, but how cool it would be just to spend the night in a mall.
That's a great movie.
I was probably 8 the first time I watched it, so I wasn't paying attention to all the terribleness. I was just like, this looks so cool. They can just take whatever they want, and they're in the mall.
Right.
Okay. Rocky 3 had...
He buys an arcade, I believe, right?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because he's rich at this point. He's become the world champion. He's fat and happy, super svelte, steroided up Rocky at this point. And that's the plot of the movie.
He plays it or something. Yeah. I vaguely remember that. Okay, has anyone seen a movie called Midnight Madness? It's a 1980 movie. I hadn't looked it up. Apparently, it has an arcade scene in it. Same with Bustin' Loose, a 1981 movie. I don't know.
Can't say I've seen that cinema.
Here's
classic.
one that no one's seen. Features a few arcade games. It's called Tron.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Kind of obscure for most arcade fans. And we talk about it. We've talked about it before. Tron. Seeing Flynn's arcade in Tron at the beginning is basically what we've been trying to do at Free Play.
It's gonna be tonight.
I've
seen the pictures.
So tonight's gonna be a totally tonight is probably we're doing a just to get everyone who's listening or watching this. Tonight we're doing our very first ever Blacklight event at Free Play Arcade. We have 1,800 people interested on Facebook. We've got more than 200 that have already clicked going. It's going to be. We're clearing out space. We've bought all these insanely expensive blacklight fixtures. We have a pretty good idea that this is going to be one a really cool blacklight event, and people are really excited about it, and it's going to be a madhouse crazy. It's going to be a scene, and it's
going to be one that people who miss it are going to be hearing about for a long time.
Absolutely.
And obviously it'll be a come and go, but what capacity are we at? Just curiosity.
We can fit 200. Well, after the employees, we can fit 250 people. We will have 250, I believe, in there tonight. I believe. And it's gonna, and that's free play is like so many different things too. And it's a total segue, and you'll have to forgive me for this, but free play is...
I'll have the shirts on.
Free play is like,
forgive us.
I mean, because and I saw in our community group someone calling it their cheers, or it's become such a big hangout that it's really great for the regulars who are going to come. They're probably not going to play all that many games tonight. They're just there for the atmosphere and the environment, and it's going to be really neat. And in a lot of ways, you can see that in Flynn's arcade. It's a totally like party. It's such a cool place to be.
It is Flynn's. I mean, we all cheer whenever Paga beats Dragon's Lair. We have that scene over and over again, played out in life.
Well, yeah, and you've got people, surrounding people on their games, really excited when they're going for a high score. Everyone's proud. I mean, it's like it's straight out of the 80s, but it didn't really exist then, and I'm so excited. It's just so cool to be a part of it. But yeah, so Tron had a few arcades in it. Had a lot of EM pinballs. Most people don't remember. It's kind of funny watching that because they made Tron in 1982, and solid state pinballs had only been out for a few years. And the lighting and stuff, they look really almost Western, the pinballs. And then the video games look so cool. So you can kind of see why video games had such a quick burst in the early 80s. They seemed like the future. And now pinball, of course, is back. It's had a big renaissance, but it was like... It's weird watching that because the pinballs look ancient, but the video game still looks so cool. I don't know. There's an arcade scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's actually kind of cool because they have some obscure games in there, and they show gameplay. They show a lot of... I can't remember... I know they have like Pac-Man and stuff, but they have some of the more obscure, and they just have actual pointing the video camera at the game with someone playing it in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Have you seen that, Lauren?
I have not.
It's a good movie.
I've caught it on cable. If you
I'm supposed to.
It's a really great.
Oh yes, Josh would appreciate it. I'm sure.
All right, so here's one that I've now seen thanks to Alamo Drafthouse, basically forcing me, and I'd heard about it a long time before that. It's called Joysticks.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to.
It's like a raunchy teen comedy that's low budget, weird, but it's in an arcade. It's just about an arcade, and it is over the top. I mean, more nudity than ever would be required in an arcade.
It's Porky's in an arcade, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, it's worth that watch once. And it Alamo has an original print, and they're so proud of this original print that they keep showing it, and everyone's just like, "Dude, no one wants to watch it anymore. We love it. We love it. We love that it exists, but it's not like something you want to keep watching." All right, so this is one of my all-time favorite movies. I've made Alamo show this a few times. War Games. Has not only the arcade scene in the beginning, but it's kind of,
Galaga featured heavily in that one.
Yeah, Galaga. I mean, his first game.
I've seen that one, actually.
I love War Games.
Yeah.
I've shown War Games mysteriously at Free Play before, just because I was bored and wanted to watch War Games. I don't have that much time anymore. That shows really how things have changed. Because used to, I could just go to Richardson and be like, you know what, it's 2 o'clock, we're going to open in an hour, and then we'll have an hour. I'll just put War Games on and watch it on the projector. Man, times have changed. Times have certainly changed. All right, so Twilight Zone, the movie, I tried to look this up. I vaguely remember...
All I remember about Twilight Zone, the movie, other than the famous death that happened in the production, is the voice of Bart Simpson is featured as an actor. I forget her name, but... Yeah,
I can't remember it offhand either. And
she plays a child in that movie.
Twilight Zone had pinball in arcades occasionally, the TV show, and pinball, especially during the original production, in the background quite a bit. All right, so then we get to a bunch of... I'm just going to see if y'all have ever seen these. I don't know what games. They're not listed. We've got Strange Brew.
It rings a bell, but I don't remember.
Never Say Never Again. Is that a James Bond?
Yes, and that's got the cool... I bet you remember if I had to describe it. They're playing a fantasy game where they have like a LED screen. They're sitting opposed from each other.
Oh.
They have joysticks that are electrified that as they get nuked, they actually get zapped. And the supervillain has to play Sean Connery, James Bond, who's back, even though Roger Moore... Okay, watch this movie. Kim Basinger is the femme fatale in this one. This one's actually... It's cheesy. It's a James Bond movie, but...
Would recommend?
Yeah. I mean, just for the nostalgic value. And yeah, that arcade scene is wild. All right, it's a game that doesn't exist. But it reminds me of the Mech Warrior games that you find in Japan, though.
Right.
Head-to-head. Long table, a table as long as this. That's the actual arcade cabinet, as it were. And then there's a screen like here. I know.
I'm trying to figure this out. I've seen this one. Star Trek 3: Search for Spock, which is famously the first bad Star Trek movie.
Oh.
Nope. I'm trying to. I don't know.
Or,
yeah, apparently.
Because 4 they go back to the 80s.
Star Trek 3, according to this list, has an arcade game in it, and I don't see it. I don't know.
Bizarre.
But I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
Star Trek 4: A Voyage Home. I would suspect has an arcade because I do go back to the 80s, and there's a guy with a boombox. I think that's maybe Spock has the boombox. So I ever saw that one.
Nice.
Maybe it's a typo.
Ghostbusters and Gremlins both. I mean, as good 80s movies had a little arcade.
In a bar in Gremlins' case.
Right.
Very small town.
Okay, and I know I can't.
You seen these one? Ghostbusters and
Ghostbusters?
Gremlins? Yes.
Legit questions.
It's fair.
Before you were born.
Karate Kid had a couple.
An arcade montage.
Yeah.
In fact, the date scene.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that is it.
Last
Starfighter, of course, had The Last Starfighter, which is not a real arcade game, except our friends over at I can't remember what he calls it, but it's Estel here in town. He has built his own
Rogue Synapse.
Rogue Synapse. Yeah, they have built a honest to goodness Last Starfighter cab. Programmed a Last Starfighter arcade game just to put in the cab, based as hardcore as they could on the movie. And we've put it out at Alamo before. It goes to the Let's Play Game Expo. It's actually really kind of fun. It's grown on me too. At first, I thought it was just too out there for me to play, but I kind of enjoy the gameplay now. I don't know if you've spent any time with it.
I haven't gotten to play it. It's so popular when it comes out because it's a fantasy game. It's like that James Bond game, like just come to life.
Well, and it's amazing just reading this because the arcades were so pervasive in the 80s. They just show up in the background of just about everything. And of course, Ferris Bueller's Day Off famously had the principal making the scene in the pizza place, thinking that one of the girls that had short hair was one of the guys, and they're playing Karate Champ aggressively. Anything like that, I'll always remember it. So we've got, all right, Philadelphia Experiment.
I haven't seen it.
Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
I want to see it. I have not seen it.
Oh, man.
Have you seen it?
No.
Peter... RoboCop actor is
so all of these just
heavily featured in Ready Player One, in fact.
Right, and it's amazing because obviously the 80s movies, they're just capturing 80s culture. But I just, these are Spielberg generation movies, and Spielberg's directly involved with some of these, and still Ready Player One. Spielberg loved arcade games. He owns arcade games. I can't get over this. I mean,
heavily references the movie Buckaroo Banzai. He wanted to delete the arcades out of it all.
I guess so. It's amazing. The Goonies had an arcade scene. Very Real Genius arcade scene. I mean, it's so amazing. All of these.
I've seen both of those. Have you seen Real Genius?
No.
Goonies?
Yes.
Okay.
Many times.
Goonies is important.
I've seen Goonies in one of your lunchtime extravaganzas at Free Play.
Right. I mean, I think, and what's really amazing is that would feature like our employees ranging from like 20 to probably 45, and everyone's just sitting there watching the Goonies and so in love with it and loves it. It's just
definitely classic.
It's amazing. Yeah. And all right, so we'll talk Back to the Future 2. Do you remember?
Yeah, the gun game.
Yeah,
you gotta use your hands.
It has
a scene that we see repeated daily at Free Play.
Right,
as kids are confused about why there's a start button.
Yeah, that really
rules
blows
the
games.
games.
But yeah, they had Wild Gunman, which they didn't actually have the arcade Wild Gunman in Back to the Future 2, and it never had its own release. Now, a lot of home collectors have made their own Wild Gunman, and of course, we at a Texas theater event one time turned one of our Play Choice 10s into a dedicated Wild Gunman. And it's not even a great game, but because it's in Back to the Future 2, every time Back to the Future 2, which is a fantastic movie, awesome, everyone wants to figure out a way to get our Wild Gunman on site somehow. Right? It's always a fun conversation where I'm like, well, that's not really a real game. They're like, it's in the movie, and I'm like, yeah, it was kind of custom built. It's an NES game that was on the Play Choice. It plays a little different.
Do you have any good moments like that from the arcade of little kids? Having the you got to use your hands sort of moment.
Well, the biggest thing that I see is on Lucky and Wild, when people have the pedals, the steering, and the gun.
2 guns.
And they're just like, how did people do this? They're like, there's like 3 different things I have to do at once. This is like, it should have some sort of like haptic touch feedback or something so that I could really figure this out. It's really that
for
you
2
can,
players.
Yeah, that you can see. Pretty often.
I have seen little kids get angry at Frogger because of its relation relation to Crossy Road.
Right. Well, I mean, my favorite thing that happens every single day is people play the original Mario Brothers, and the first thing they do is go jump on the enemy. Which in Mario Brothers you can't actually jump on the enemy. In Super Mario Brothers you can. That's how you kill them in Super Mario Brothers, but not on Mario Brothers. And they get so upset. They think that there's something wrong with our game because it's killing them. And
left trigger problems on Spy Hunter.
I don't Spy Hunter.
But and we were just talking about Pixels.
For the podcast audience that doesn't know Spy Hunter, the left trigger is earned in the game.
You don't start with the left trigger, and we've had every time we put Spy Hunter out, we don't even have that out right now because of these people. We get immediate tech reports that the left trigger doesn't work, and we put signage on it. We've done everything. Spy Hunter cannot be on the floor because people always think it's broken.
Right.
But in Pixels, the kid is supposed to be that perspective, right? Her kid, right? And so he's like, oh, I play Halo. I play these modern games.
Well, they make a joke.
Yeah, 90s version of that kid because it's Adam Sandler. So he's playing Halo.
No, Adam Sandler says, I played like the classics. And the kid goes, like Halo.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good joke. That's pretty good.
But anyway.
For an Adam Sandler movie.
So that perspective of just like the restart or the going, because in most I don't play modern games, so I have to ask you. But in most modern games, like in some way or another, you can just keep going, right? Versus in arcade games,
you usually don't have lives.
If you die, you die.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, they don't want your next quarter.
Right. There's no gimmick to try to get you to keep playing. Mm-hmm. And so the gimmick is they want you to see the end of the game.
Yeah, in some way they would like you to experience the entirety of the art that they have made. So yes, you get to continue. If you die, you just respawn at that point or shortly thereafter. Versus
that's hugely different from most arcade games.
Where people haven't even ever seen the ending of Dragon's Lair unless they've either watched Paga do it or gone on YouTube and watched it.
Tapper, every time I play, people are like, I've never seen the aliens.
Right, yeah.
And that's like really wild, so.
Well, yeah, and I would guess that like 1% of the people who've ever played Defender have made it past the first stage in Defender.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah, when you set a high score, if we do the free play chain and you're supposed to set a small high score that someone can obtain, if you set the default high score on Defender, it's unobtainable because it's just so hard.
No, I remember on Tournament Arkanoid, we brought it to Let's Play Gaming Expo. No, it was at Retropalooza, and we were trying to get someone to break the world record on it. And I was the only player that beat the default high score the entire weekend.
Yeah.
And it was insane to just think about how all of these, and because Retropalooza's audience is mostly kids who watch YouTube. Like Retropalooza has all these YouTubers coming. I didn't know that because it was called Retropalooza, but that's apparently their big draw is these YouTubers. And they would walk up, they'd play Arkanoid, they'd get it, and then it was too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Which is concerning actually, because we were there before we'd opened our arcade, and then we opened the arcade and everyone was like, they fall in love with them. And the free play model means you get to play it until you're good at it, if you want to, if it captures you that way.
So happy that Lauren likes Arkanoid. she's the bigger fan of Arkanoid than me.
Arkanoid's amazing, and
I just miss it, but that's a different story.
Well, it should be a Denton pretty soon.
Yes.
Arkanoid has, our biggest issue is the spinners use little spokes and people are jerks and break the spokes.
But the spinner is like the coolest, unique part. Okay, Arkanoid story later. Let's move on.
Okay, so we're gonna so everyone around me is telling me we got to wrap it up pretty soon, but we're gonna go through a few more movies. We're gonna skip some. So this actually was big in my formative years at loving arcades and having sympathy a little bit for those kids who got roped into the Foot Clan in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh yeah,
when they show the lair, they give Narc like 30 seconds of gameplay, which Narc we've just released in our Denton location. That's not actually open yet, but it is coming at our Denton location. A ridiculously violent thing, but you see this lair for these kids, and they're like 12 or 14, handing out cartons of cigarettes, playing video games and skateboarding and stuff. It's like the perfect like capture of the very early 90s, very late 80s, and man, it looked cool. Like
it did. Made you want to join a.
Seriously, these kids have unlimited free free arcade games.
Like, street gang. Have you seen the original Ninja Turtles live action movie?
I have not.
Okay.
Goodness. All right.
But we'll just do more podcasts and then I have to watch them.
Well, yeah, there's so many cool things. We should probably at some point just watch a montage of all of these arcade scenes so that we can capture the game. Because, I mean, then there's Terminator 2, which has...
Oh, yeah. Afterburner, Missile Command.
It has full motion. One of the coolest, just amazing arcades in the world, and they're running through it in the mall, and it's just so cool. I mean, it even has Hit the Ice, which is... difficult to find in California. That's a total arcade nerd.
Great sequence. It ties in with the plot well.
Well, and so it's really amazing how fast it starts to drop off. They would, because the people who compiled this
I
list,
watched Suburban Commando. I don't know if it's on your list or not.
It is. Yeah, it was actually next,
it.
Right after Terminator 2. Who I've never seen Suburban Commando. What?
Hulk Hogan is an alien, I believe. Yeah, he's an alien. Christopher Lloyd is the straight guy, and they have a sequence where.
Do you remember what games were in the scene?
No, I do not. I know I've looked at the picture, but it's just classic 80s games.
Well, all right. So we got to wrap it up. Pixels, Adam Sandler movie, but it had a true love for the 80s. So I mean, that's special.
I came
that's
in with
awesome.
Zero expectations. I enjoyed it enough that
I would say
for my free play friends, I would say let's get together. Have enough drinks that we're not worrying about what's going wrong with that movie and enjoy it for what it is.
I would say it's not a good movie, but watch it.
No, right, yeah,
which you don't hear that often. I recommend this movie, but I'm not calling it a good movie.
Well, if you're a fan,
and I'm not even saying it's so bad it's good either. Like it's
right, yeah. That was kind of. I was so hoping it would be that bad.
It's not. But for our love of the 80s and its love of the 80s,
it's the first thing that's.
It does make me smile.
It's really the only thing that's ever captured arcade games in my mind.
I know.
Since the 80s.
We've been trying to. I mean, we were trying to talk about that when I was watching it. Like nothing has ever quite had the spirit of the arcade, and that's something. That's something that we have to say. Pixels has it, and it captures video games a lot better than Ready Player One. And I don't think if 3 years ago you ever told me an Adam Sandler movie or a Spielberg, which one was going to be the better representation of video game players and video games, the Adam Sandler movie was going to get it right. I don't know, but it did, and that's
it did.
That's where we are. This has been 2 hours of Pixels and random discussion on videos. Check in next time for every single movie that has ever had an arcade game in it. We'll watch them all.
We're going to have a 7-hour podcast on Suburban Commando
and Rumblefish. Footloose. I mean, it's so amazing. I watch this stuff sometimes just to capture that feel, and so that I can try to replicate it at the arcade. It's amazing. It's just like there was something special about it, and
I am so down with having an occasional podcast where we grab Lauren, watch a movie of whatever quality from the 80s with an arcade scene.
I love watching movies from before I was born.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, and if you're trying to find arcades and movies, that's a pretty good start.
Yeah.
So for now, we're wrapping it up. This has been part 2 of our Pixels / arcade game movie discussion. We'll be back next time with some more interesting content. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.